Joining me now here, Jeff Kassouf. You can find his work over at our website, ESPN.com. Also does great work over at Equalizer Soccer. What do you think of the festivities so far today? Busy day on your end, huh?
Yeah, this is spectacular. Even a few years ago, we did not have this. A proper media day, some actual pomp and circumstance. It feels like a proper event, which it should.
Yeah, we talked about it on the show, I guess it was on Monday, right? Where we talked about this being maybe not the expected final, but the dream final. As you see the kind of gathered media here, do you sense that the hype we would have thought we'd get out of an Ali Krieger, Megan Rapinoe farewell match finale has actually been delivered?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's on the game itself, right? I mean, to deliver, I think, two legends of the game and to have them, I mean, it could be a bit of a head-to-head matchup even. I think it's, you know, the hype is there, and I think, you know, hopefully we get a good game, but I think it's on the league, too, to sell that point, right? So, yeah, I think we've gotten a pretty good amount of hype. And
it sounds like we're going to have a pretty good crowd on Saturday. Yep. I know that's a big concern, and we talked about it with the commissioner, Jessica Berman. What do you do with your final? Do you put it in a place where you know you're going to have at least one of the teams involved, or do you set a neutral site, which gives you other advantages? I think, when you see a Gotham FC and an OL Reign, those teams are from far away. You might have thought, oh, there might not be a lot of folks present for this final. They've already sold, what, 22, 25,000 tickets. It looks like they're well on their way. I mean, it's not a sellout, but it'll be close. It'll be a good crowd. Yeah,
it'll be a good crowd. And I do think the big challenge with that, right, is venue availability. And this is a league where teams are often still second, maybe third tenants. So to leave that to chance on a one-week notice for a final, I think this is, she's been asked frequently, by myself included, of do you stay to this neutral venue or this predetermined venue? And this gives them the ability to make an event like this with some amount of planning where they can plan ahead and not risk it on maybe a venue that doesn't support this.
Yeah. All right, so let's dive into the two protagonists of this game. We'll start with Ali Krieger. We had a chance to talk with her, obviously, on this show. You've had a chance to talk with her. It really does seem like, even though I think most people would say, well, Megan Rapinoe is more well-known. Megan Rapinoe is more famous. She has a higher Q rating. There's like a deep, deep appreciation for Ali Krieger from the hardcore NWSL fans that I think we've really seen come through over the last couple weeks and even months as we've known that the end of her career is coming.
Yeah, absolutely. I think from her teammates as well. I think across the league and the sport. I mean, it's a player who has done a lot for the game. I think as a human, she spoke about this a lot today. She brings a human element that she's no better than anybody else because she's a pro footballer, is what she just said earlier. So she's lived that. She's sort of exuded that throughout her career. I think that's made her as likable as she is, right? And that's why I think, two very famous, likable players that obviously one is going to be on the wrong side of things on Saturday, but, I think she is a player who is extremely respected as well.
Yeah. Speaking of respect, I mean, I think in women's soccer circles, there are a few people that get more of it than Megan Rapinoe. You think about women's soccer stars who have transcended the sport. It's a really short list. And on Saturday, we're saying goodbye to one of the few players to cut through all that and do so.
And I think it's important, too. It's almost fitting that it is a Reign game. She had her goodbye with the U.S., but if you talk to Megan Rapinoe about how she built her game, she did it in Seattle, right? I mean, we saw it at the international stage. We saw it come to fruition. But a lot of that happened behind closed doors or away from cameras in Seattle with the Reign, where she's been for 10 years. And she's never been able to, along with some of the others, deliver a championship to this team that she's come to, make a second home in Seattle. So I think this is very important for her. I think it's fitting that it is in a club setting where finally a league she helped build has a big-time event like this.
OL Reign, I mean, they are the team that has been knocking on the door but unable to break through. In the finals in 2014 and 2015, great seasons in 2018, 19, 21, 22, getting to the semifinals, but, couldn't get to that kind of final hump. So, this OL Reign team really seems like this is the moment for them, doesn't it? It seems like if it's going to be ever, it's kind of got to be now.
Well, look, I said that last year. So, I mean,
they were Shield winners last year,
and they've gotten farther than they did last year. So, I think it's interesting because you look at that 2014 Reign team, best team arguably in the world, arguably the best team we've ever seen in this league, and obviously they fell short at this stage, and then they did it again the next year. And 2015 final that they lost, Laura Harvey's told me multiple times in the past month even, she never forgets that because she feels like they didn't show up. It wasn't that they got outplayed, they just never showed up. So I think it'll be a really interesting dynamic on Saturday of how do the Reign come out? What does that mean for Megan Rapinoe's legacy, I mean, I think is pretty firmly in place. But, you know, Laura Harvey's coaching legacy and where she's at, a couple of other players, Lou Barnes and Jess Fishlock, who've been here since the beginning. So I don't think this is actually the best Reign team we've ever seen in a final. But, you know, maybe perhaps the best shot and certainly the last shot for Rapinoe and maybe a few others.
When we talk about legacy, because we've talked to both of the players about it, you know, they have everything on their resumes, Megan Rapinoe and Ali Krieger, but they don't have an NWSL championship. How important do you think it would be for their legacies, which are obviously solidified with the national team's successes, but what does that NWSL title mean to players who have done it all?
Yeah, I asked Ali Krieger this last week, and she said it'd be the cherry on top is how she described it. It wouldn't make or break her career, right, with all the, you know, the 2 World Cups, but I do think it means something, and I think it genuinely means something to these 2 players because they do feel like they've been part of building this league, and they have both of them. I mean, Krieger was in a penalty shootout in 2016, came up short in a final. So, you know, I think to fall short and not have that title, I don't think it will, you know, hurt their legacy hugely, but I think whichever one of them walks away with this, it completes that picture, right? It completes the trophy case for them.
So Megan Rapinoe and Alran, we mentioned, they kind of been knocking on this door for a while. It's a totally different story for Gotham FC. Not only the worst to first kind of in over the last few years, but if you think about what Sky Blue FC was and what it kind of stood for to NWSL fans, am I being too harsh to suggest that it was like the laughing stock of the league for a while? And yet here we are with Gotham FC in the championship. How did that happen?
Yeah, no, you're not being too harsh. I think I've described it as that myself. And look, I mean, you had players, as we know famously, talking, you know, taking ice baths in trash cans and living in terrible housing situations. How it transformed. I mean, you talk to the players, one, year over year, it's the coaching staff and the change there. But, you know, I think there's the investment. We saw new ownership investment this week out of Gotham. It's something where top down, there's been changes culturally, investment, and this is a team that really, I mean, literally with the rebrand a few years ago, had to reinvent itself from a franchise that was looked at globally as like a place to not be.
Right.
So, yeah.
I wonder then if we think about Gotham FC as kind of going from worst to first, completing that full 180 turnaround. Do you think it's an organization that can continue to build on this, or is this a little bit of like a flash in the pan?
Yeah, look, that's the challenge, right? Because last year's final, we saw Kansas City Current, last place the year prior.
That's really the story in that NWSL. You see teams, I mean, worst to first and first to worst, like nothing.
Yeah, we talk about this as the league of transition on the field. It is the league of transition off the field. There's constantly a blockbuster trade, stars moving, and it's hard to keep continuity. I think the few teams that have done it, the Reign is one of them without the title still, but, you know, it's commendable to them that they've been able to do it. So I think Gotham, you look at it, okay, the coaching is part of it, so coach needs to stick around. That's part of it. You know, roster has some veteran players that might have some turnover, so there will be challenges. I think having that core in place is important. I think it's possible, but look, expansion's coming again. We've got an expansion draft with 2 new teams. There are a lot of ways in which rosters get picked apart every single offseason in this league, so that's going to be a huge challenge. I think it's doable, but it's not going to be easy. Let's
kind of focus in on the final itself. I want to start off the field, though, actually in the technical area, because I feel like we have talked a lot about Laura Harvey, but it's actually Juan Carlos Amoroso that's the coach of the year, and who you keep talking about when you're talking about the coaching at Gotham FC. Where do you see the edge there?
Yeah, I think Juan Carlos Amoroso has been really impressive. His staff too. I mean, you just look at some of his assistants and you know what they're doing. They're playing chess with players to mimic an opponent's tactics. I think that they've really gotten the tactics right. They pulled the strings the right way. They did it in the semifinal against Portland. You look at some of the moves. Portland made big moves. Gotham made the right moves. You look at Esther Gonzalez, a number 9, almost playing as a number 6 for half a game. Things that maybe you don't even necessarily expect, but I think he's been able to see, okay, I've got this quality in a player. I can play her in a certain way, and maybe in a way that the opponent's not expecting. And it's come to fruition in a way that has Gotham in a final. I think it's huge credit to him and his staff.
From the Gotham FC perspective, what do you think is their chief concern, and then maybe the area where they can do the most damage on Saturday?
Well, I think defensively they're sound. So in terms of strengths, you know, you look at, we just talked about Krieger. She's led that. Defensively, they've been very good this postseason. And then in terms of doing damage, I mean, I keep looking at this roster, how it's constructed, and you look at Lynn Williams. 6th time in 10 years here that her team has been in a final. And there are a lot of winners on both of these teams, but I look at her, she's got the 3 titles to her name, you know, is up there with the most leading goal scorers in this league history. So, you know, I look at Lynn Williams as a game-changing player for Gotham, and I think that's where she could do some damage against, you know, a Reign back line that will know her but will be challenged.
What about OL Reign? Where can they win this game?
Well, the midfield is a huge battle. I think you look at Gotham and they feel that their midfield is their strength. I think you look at this matchup and you'd say the Reign have the names in midfield, and for a reason, right? I mean, Jess Fishlock as one example of, again, like Rapinoe, 10 years here with the Reign, is a workhorse, is somebody who can get that entire team going if they need a bit of a kick in the butt. So, you know, I think that you look at the midfield with Fishlock in particular, and honestly, Rose Lavelle, 90 minutes fit. We saw that in the semifinal. Huge difference for the Reign, for her to be in that position, pulling the strings and making things happen. They're a different team with her.
All right, we got to get to our top 10 NWSL goals of the season, but real quick, before we do that, prediction.
I'm going to go 1-0 Gotham in a tightly contested defensive game.
Yeah. You know, we like to have our betting segment here on this show. Book it. I do not see this game going over 2.5 goals. A very defensive affair, I think, is a safe bet here. So, okay, you got a 1-0?
1-0.
1-0, okay.